A very good Saturday afternoon. This is a special edition of The Big Story. Now coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom, I'm Haryanto Diman. Now remember, you can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. In a short while, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong will be unveiling his new cabinet lineup at a live press conference from the Istana. This announcement comes 2 weeks after the July 10th general election. Before we cross live to PM Lee, here's a quick roundup of the outgoing ministers and office holders. Minister Khaw Boon Wan, Senior Minister of State Sam Tan and Mayor Teo Ho Pin retired as MPs before GE 2020. Now, meanwhile, Minister Ng Chee Meng, Senior Minister of State Lam Pin Min and Senior Parliamentary Secretary Amrin Amin are outgoing office holders after they lost Sengkang GRC to the Workers' Party team. We'll now go live to PM Lee.
This is a team that will lead Singapore through our current public health and economic crisis, and also plan for our future beyond the crisis, so that Singapore can recover strongly and seize opportunities in the post-COVID world. In assembling this team, I have consulted DPM Heng Swee Keat and my senior colleagues, and we sought to balance three things: continuity, exposure, and renewal. First, continuity. In normal times, we need experienced ministers to provide steady hands and also to mentor the younger ministers. And in this crisis, this need is even greater, because this is not normal times. We are in the thick of a grave crisis, dealing with a fast-moving, uncertain situation. Every day, we are racing to keep things under control and to prevent events from overwhelming us. And this puts a premium on experience and assurance. Therefore, most of my ministers in the cabinet are experienced ones with at least one term of government as political office holders. And most of the older ministers are staying on, including myself, my two senior ministers, Dr. Ng Eng Hen, Mr. Shanmugaratnam, and Mr. Gan Kim Yong. Secondly, I'm rotating the ministers, especially the younger ones, to gain exposure and experience. We regularly do this during cabinet reshuffles, and the intent is to expose the office holders to different portfolios, to gain both breadth and depth, to understand the intricacies of the issues and to see things from different perspectives, and ultimately from a national perspective. Thirdly, I'm renewing the lineup and bringing in fresh blood. I'm promoting several junior office holders and backbenchers who have performed well. I'm also bringing in fresh faces from the newly elected MPs, including several from the private sector and one of whom as a full minister. They will reinforce my team and offer new ideas and perspectives. Let me now run through the detailed changes, starting with the ministers whose portfolios are unchanged. First, Heng Swee Keat will continue to be the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. As Finance Minister, he controls the government's budget and therefore will have broad oversight of our major priorities and policies. The Ministry of Finance team is unchanged. Heng Swee Keat will continue to be supported by Lawrence Wong and Indrani Raja as second ministers. Heng Swee Keat will also be formally designated as Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies, as he chairs the Future Economy Council as well as the National Research Foundation. Actually, he was already playing this role in the last term, so this just formalizes existing arrangements. Heng Swee Keat will also continue to oversee the strategy group within the Prime Minister's office, which coordinates our policies and plans across the government. Second, as I mentioned earlier, the two senior ministers, Teo Chee Hean and Tharman Shanmugaratnam, will remain. As senior ministers, they do not have responsibilities for specific ministries, but they are invaluable in advising me and the younger ministers, weighing in with their views as needed. Teo Chee Hean will continue as coordinating Minister for National Security and oversee several other issues cutting across the whole of government, including population and climate change. Tharman Shanmugaratnam will continue as coordinating Minister for Social Policies and also Chairman of MAS. He also has one more important task, and that is chairing our National Jobs Council. Third, I have kept on the ministers who are directly handling the COVID-19 crisis. That means the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Trade and Industry, and the Ministry of Manpower. Gan Kim Yong will continue as Minister for Health. Prior to COVID-19, he was pushing major reforms of our healthcare system, building new hospitals, improving healthcare financing. He's leading our response to COVID-19, co-chairing the ministerial task force together with Lawrence Wong. I have asked Gan Kim Yong to stay on in MOH for now, because we are still in the critical phase of the fight. Chan Chun Sing will also remain at MTI, and S. Iswaran will continue to support him as Minister in charge of Trade Relations. Getting the economy back on track is our major priority. As we reopen the economy, we need to support viable industries and companies that need help to get back into operation. At the same time, we must quickly transform industries and companies that are no longer viable, at least no longer viable in the original form, so as to avoid propping them up indefinitely. MTI is a key ministry doing this together with MOM and other related ministries and agencies. Josephine Teo will also continue as Minister for Manpower. Josephine Teo joined Ministry of Manpower only 2 years ago, but has made significant changes to improve job prospects and income security of Singaporeans. For example, tightening up the fair consideration framework and introducing the matched retirement savings scheme. With the recession biting and retrenchments rising, MOM will be redoubling its efforts to save jobs and to retrain our workers to take new ones. MOM is also involved managing the migrant workers in the dormitories and getting them safely housed, safely managed, and safely working. Fourthly, the ministers for the security and central agencies, MINDEF, Foreign Affairs, Home Affairs, Law, and MCI, will remain. Ng Eng Hen, Vivian Balakrishnan, K. Shanmugam, and S. Iswaran all retain their current portfolios. Ng Eng Hen at MINDEF, Vivian Balakrishnan at Foreign Affairs, and also with responsibility for the Smart Nation Initiative. K. Shanmugam at Home Affairs and also Min Law, and S. Iswaran will continue to be Minister at MCI. Now let me speak about the ministers who are moving for exposure. Lawrence Wong will be the new Minister for Education, replacing Ong Ye Kung. Lawrence Wong was previously at MOE, where he carried out a review of higher education, which raised the university cohort participation rate to 40% and widened the range of university degrees. He will build on the good work of Ong Ye Kung and previous education ministers and continue improving our education system to bring out the best in every child and student. He will also focus on lifelong learning for adults and work with companies to integrate learning with the new demands at our workplaces. Lawrence Wong will continue to co-chair the multi-ministry task force on COVID-19. Ong Ye Kung will succeed Khaw Boon Wan in the Ministry of Transport. I thank Khaw Boon Wan for his many accomplishments there. In the last 5 years, MOT's priority was engineering work, especially getting our public transport system in good shape and to improve its reliability. Khaw Boon Wan has done an excellent job of this. In the next few years, MOT's emphasis will shift to envisioning and realizing Singapore's post-COVID-19 connectivity by land, sea, and air. For land, our public transport system will need to evolve further to be sustainable, affordable, and part of our long-term plan for a green Singapore. For sea and air, the critical task is to preserve Singapore's status as a global hub, especially in the post-COVID-19 world. The Ministry of Transport will also be engaged with Malaysia and Indonesia on major bilateral projects like the high-speed rail and the RTS link, and also sensitive airspace and maritime issues. So we need a very good minister at the helm with cabinet experience and political nous. Desmond Lee will be appointed Minister for National Development, replacing Lawrence Wong. Desmond Lee has been second minister at the Ministry of National Development for several years, so he's familiar with the issues. He has been doing good work engaging community groups on our physical development plans. He has also been helping the ministerial task force, or multi-ministry task force, sort out arrangements for migrant construction workers to resume work. He will have support in MND from Indrani Raja, who will be appointed second minister. Indrani Raja will remain as second minister for finance, as well as minister in the Prime Minister's office, overseeing the National Population and Talent Division and assisting SM Teo Chee Hian on population matters. Although Desmond Lee is being posted to MND, he will retain a role in the Ministry of Social and Family Development as Minister in charge of Social Services Integration. This is to allow him to complete the unfinished work of integrating our social services. We have made progress on this, for example, setting up social service offices in the heartlands, but there's more to do to make our social services more citizen-centric and to provide comprehensive support, bringing together financial assistance with education, healthcare, employment, and other issues. Masagos Zulkifli will take over from Desmond Lee as Minister for Social and Family Development. He has a good understanding of the needs of different segments of the community and will bring this to bear in this new ministry. Masagos Zulkifli will be concurrently appointed Second Minister at the Ministry of Health. This is so that we can look at healthcare and aging issues from a holistic perspective and with a community lens, and strengthen our efforts on preventive health, especially on common and preventable ailments like diabetes, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol. Minister Masagos will, of course, continue as a minister in charge of Muslim affairs. Finally, Grace Fu will move to the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment, previously what we call the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources. We are renaming the ministry to call it the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment, to better reflect its future role. Sustainability has become an increasingly important part of our national agenda. We are planning our climate change defenses and managing our carbon footprint, and COVID-19 has also shown Singaporeans how important the work is which goes on behind the scenes on issues like food security and safety. Water, of course, remains an important part of MSE's mission, and it is part of sustainability. Next, let me speak about the new political office holders I'm bringing in to refresh the team. First, on promotions. I'm promoting Maliki Osman and Edwin Tong to full ministers. Maliki Osman will be second minister to Vivian Balakrishnan at Foreign Affairs and to Lawrence Wong at Education. He will also be appointed minister in the Prime Minister's office. Edwin Tong will be appointed to be the Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and also concurrently Second Minister for Law, supporting K. Shanmugam. Both Maliki Osman and Edwin Tong have performed well as senior ministers of state, and it is time for them to step up and take on more responsibilities. I'm also promoting 4 other junior ministers. Zaki Mohammed will be promoted to senior minister of state and will add MINDEF to his existing responsibilities in Manpower. Low Yen Ling, Faisal Ibrahim, and Sun Xie Ling will move up from senior parliamentary secretaries to ministers of state and also take on new portfolios. And Rahayu Mazam will be appointed from the backbenches. She will take on a new role as parliamentary secretary in Ministry of Health beginning from the 1st of September this year. Next, let me introduce the new faces we are bringing into the team from our batch of newly elected MPs. I'm appointing Tan See Leng as a full minister. I think he's at the end. Yeah. Tan See Leng has a depth of private sector experience as a medical professional and business entrepreneur. He will be second minister in the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Manpower, as well as minister in PMO. In MTI, he will add a private sector perspective to economic policy making to make sure our policies are effective in helping businesses and to address problems faced by the private sector. Being also posted to Manpower, he will help align our economic and manpower policies to reinforce each other. Gan Xiao Huang, Alvin Tan, Desmond Tan, Tan Kiat Hao, and Eric Chua will also be appointed as new office holders from our slate of new MPs. Gan Xiao Huang will be Minister of State at both Education and Manpower, where she will help push our education and skills training agenda. Alvin Tan will go to MTI and MCCY as Minister of State, where his knowledge of social media and the digital media industry will come in useful. Alvin Tan will take up his appointment a little later on the 1st of September. Desmond Tan will be Minister of State at the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment. Tan Kiat Hao will join Ministry of National Development as MOS. He will also be appointed in PMO, where he will work on government outreach and communications. He will also oversee REACH. Eric Chua will be Parliamentary Secretary in MCCY and MSF. His extensive experience with youth and community work will prove invaluable in both ministries. Finally, I want to say a few words about those who are leaving political office. Khaw Boon Wan, as you know, decided to retire at this general election. Khaw Boon Wan has been part of my cabinet since day one, and I'm very grateful for his contributions and friendship. I'm happy that he'll continue to make himself available to advise the younger ministers on issues that he is familiar with and to share his experience and wisdom. Some of you may have heard, you would have read in the papers that he has been hospitalized for dengue fever this week, but I have good news. He's recovered well and he's been discharged this morning. I wish him good health and a peaceful and active retirement. Sam Tan too is retiring. He has held office in many different ministries since he joined politics in 2006, including MTI, MFA, MCI, and Manpower. He was also Mayor of Central Singapore District for a term from 2011 to 2014. He has been invaluable to the team because he's close to the Chinese ground and has given us reliable feedback on how the community views issues. Finally, Dr. Tan Wu Ming has asked to leave the government to return to medical practice. As Senior Parliamentary Secretary in MFA, he traveled to many far-flung parts of the world, ably representing Singapore's interests at international meetings. In MTI, he looked after consumer interests through the Competition Commission and CASE, and advised the pro-enterprise panel to help SMEs and startups. I thank Tan Wu Ming for his contributions in government and look forward to more good work from him as a senior MP in Jurong GRC. During the general election, we also lost 3 good POHs, Ng Chee Meng, Lam Pin Min, and Amrin Amin. They were valuable members of my team, and I'm sorry to see them leave government. But Ng Chee Meng continues to serve as NTUC Secretary General, and I know the others will continue to serve Singapore in their own ways. I will work closely with Ng Chee Meng to make sure the needs of workers are properly addressed, especially in this economic recession. In total, the new cabinet will have 37 office holders, the same number as my previous cabinet in 2015. It is a team with experience and depth, with senior members tempered by the challenges that they have gone through together, reinforced with younger members who will bring different perspectives to bear and fresh ideas and energy to take us forward. Tackling COVID-19 and the economic crisis calls for all hands on deck, and my entire leadership team have roles to play. Beyond the crisis, we continue planning for the future, including for leadership succession. DPM Heng Swee Keat, together with Chan Chun Sing and the other younger ministers, are increasingly taking the lead in setting the government's agenda and preparing to take over from me and my older colleagues. I ask Singaporeans to give me and my team your full support. I'm confident Singapore will emerge stronger from the crisis, and we will do our best to work with you to secure our lives, our jobs, and our future. Thank you. Now I will take a few questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now we have the first question from the media. CNA?
Okay, firstly, the impact of the crisis on my cabinet mix. I think we are in a crisis of a generation. It's existential, it's overwhelming. As I said, we have to put all hands on deck and mobilize all the experience and capabilities we have to deal with it. And therefore, I have kept on many of my older colleagues who are participating in this fight against COVID-19 and in stabilizing our economy, my senior ministers, the other older ministers who have been in the team, and reinforced by younger ones. I have not slowed down bringing in younger ones. The constraint is whom can I persuade to come into politics, to enter government, get elected, and therefore enter the cabinet. And I have brought in all those who I think have the potential to be part of the team and to develop and grow in future and to play more significant roles in the next cabinet of the next leader. The time depends on the situation. Nobody can tell how the COVID situation will develop or how long the economic crisis will be. There are many unknowns still on how the pandemic will develop, what the impact will be on countries, how soon borders will open, and therefore what the hit we will take will be, because closed borders are a very big constraint to tourism, to international business, and Singapore is very dependent on that. So it depends very much on the way the crisis unfolds, but I will see through the crisis and I will hand over Singapore in good working order into the good hands of my successors as soon as that is possible. As for the newly elected MPs, what qualities am I looking for? Commitment, leadership, ability, and experience. All of those, they have to have the... We are looking for a lot of things in the ministers, and in particular with the new ministers, I have looked very hard to find people who have experience with the grassroots operations, with community outreach, with some policy work, and also with private sector experience, which is an area which I have often spoken about, but have not found it so easy to find people to come in and complement the talent mix and experience mix which my cabinets have. Because the cabinets need people not only from the public sector, but also from the private sector who have run a company, who have had to make a P&L work, who have been on the receiving end of policies, and who know what policies can work, and how the impact is on people, and therefore what can we do to help people, help companies and businesses and the population solve their problems, and not with every good intention to make things more complicated for them. And that's why I've got Tan Si Leng coming in, I've got Alvin Tan, who's also from the private sector, I have Rahayu, who's been in private practice for some time now. And at the same time, I've got people like Desmond Tan, Tan Kiat Hao, or Eric Tan, who have been in the government side, some with policy experience, but also with operational and outreach experience, people touch. And we are looking for that combination, and we are hoping that come into this responsibility, they will grow in their job and develop and become good ministers of state and ministers in due course. But maybe I should ask them to speak for themselves. Si Leng.
Thank you, PM. And I think it's an affirmation for the importance of the private sector. I think particularly in PM's speech with regards to all hands on deck, we are facing the pandemic, which is once in a lifetime, in many decades that we've gone through. This particular crisis requires the support and the partnership of everyone in the country to work together. And I see this as an affirmation of the importance of the private sector coming in, working in partnership. And I hope to be that bridge, to be able to bridge this moving forward. So thank you, PM, and thank you to the rest of the Cabinet for the support and the affirmation.
Perhaps Xiao Huang, I owe you, and then I'll ask Swee Kiat to say something.
Thank you, PM. Well, I've had a lot of experience working with people from all walks of life in the SAF, and also more recently as part of the labour movement. I've seen how livelihoods could be affected, and government policies and schemes and implementation can make a real difference. So I feel very honoured and privileged to now be in the Cabinet to be able to make a difference, and I hope to be able to improve the lives of Singaporeans. Thank you.
Swee Kiat.
Thanks, PM. I think, Olivier, on your question about timeline and all that, I think what is most important for us now is to focus on how do we take Singapore and Singaporeans out of this crisis and to emerge stronger from it. So there is a lot of very critical work that we need to focus our minds on, including first and foremost the fight against this pandemic. And it's good that Kim Yong and Lawrence continue to chair the multi-ministry task force. So let's focus on that to ensure that we save lives, we keep Singaporeans safe. And at the same time, we are going to be faced with very challenging economic situation. There are immediate challenges that we need to deal with because I think we are going to be faced with a very severe recession. And our top priority must be on jobs. We need to protect our workers, we need to help our workers retain their jobs, create new jobs, and build new skills among our workers, including our fresh graduates from our ITEs, polytechnics, and universities. And at the same time, in the jobs space, I'm glad that SM Tharman is heading the National Jobs Council. I'm advisor to the National Jobs Council, and I'll be working very closely with within the Future Economy Council framework, and also with Secretary General Ng Chee Meng and his senior team, because I think over the next few months in particular, but probably even longer than that, we must stay very focused on supporting our workers. At the same time, I think our priority must also be to think about how we can emerge stronger from this crisis. And there will be significant structural changes going on in the global economy, in the Singapore economy. There will be important changes in the labour markets. So we have to think about how we can prepare our businesses and our workers to emerge stronger. So I've set up the Emerging Stronger Task Force, headed by Desmond Lee and Tan Chong Meng, and they have looked into a number of new areas that we can work on in order to create new growth areas And in particular, in this COVID environment, how do we continue to do well? And at the same time, also on the social front, we must focus on this aspect. Because if you look at COVID-19, it has really deepened social divisions in many societies. So we have a Singapore Together movement to look at how we can strengthen that and ensure that Singaporeans stay united and in solidarity. So maybe I should ask Desmond to say a few words on what he has been doing.
Thank you, DPM. The Multi-Ministry Task Force looks at the current crisis and steers us through the difficult times ahead of us. But as DPM had said, we need to have capacity to look ahead, look to the future, because the road is winding and bending, and we need to be able to plan ahead. And so on the economic front as well as the social front, we need to engage Singaporeans, get a sense of how Singapore should position itself into the future, and seize opportunities that may develop and appear on the horizon. So on the Emerging Stronger Task Force, we've engaged industry, we've engaged unions, we've engaged IHLs, and will be engaging Singaporeans and civil society and stakeholders in the community. But beyond conversations, we have to move very quickly into action, because these opportunities appear and we must seize them quickly. And already we have 7 alliances for action, looking at opportunities in the digital realm, such as for supply chains, built environment, smart commerce, on sustainability, on visitor experience and how trust and integrity in healthcare can enable tourism sector to resume, on robotics, edutech, and actually many others. We are also actively engaging all the pillars of the Future Economy Council to relook at transformation plans to position us well. On the social front, we need to continue to pull Singaporeans together. There are many areas we need to continue to relook, such as work and family and the workplace. And we will be launching Emerging Stronger conversations on socio-economic issues in order for us to bring Singaporeans into these action plans. Thank you, Deep.
Thank you, Minister. Now the second question from Straits Times.
And are there any changes to that position? If so, what might that be for an orderly succession that reassures both Singaporeans and potential investors? Thank you.
I will refer this question to our 4G Minister, Chun Sing.
We are entirely focused on helping our country overcome the economic challenges and saving the jobs at this point in time. We have no plans to do otherwise, and we have no plans, no discussion on any change in plan.
Thank you. Any further questions, Straits Times?
Yes. We have seen significant changes to marquee events this year because of COVID-19, such as to NDP and the National Day Istana Open House. Can we ask, when is Parliament going to open, and PM, will you be holding a National Day rally this year?
We will be opening Parliament on the 24th of August, and the President will swear in the MPs in the afternoon. The President will make a speech to open Parliament in the evening, as is traditionally done. We will have to be safe distance, but we know how to do that. And the debate will be 1 week later, starting on the 31st of August. And I shall speak in the debate and make a major speech. I have decided to do this because there is urgency in getting Parliament convened. We have legislation to pass urgently, and there's business to be done. And because we are going to have the President's address on the 24th, and then I'm speaking about 10 days after that, I have decided this year I shall make my major speech to Singaporeans in Parliament instead of having a National Day rally, because it's not possible to convene a physical National Day rally and have a traditional event with an audience in front of me, and I can take them through slides and explanations and recount stories. So instead of that, I shall do it in Parliament, and we will have a serious debate there.
Thank you, PM. Next question from Zhao Bao.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I have two questions. One on the largely parallel movement of the 4G ministers among ministries this time round, as well as no appointment of a second DPM. And the second question is on the resources that will be afforded the leader of the opposition. 我会以中文问，希望总理可以用中文回答。我们大多看到这次的那个改组，我们看到就是4G 的，就是第4代领导团队，更多的是在就是部门之间平行的移动，包括我们看到王以康部长、黄循财部长，然后也没有看到就是有第二个副总理受委。希望请总理谈一下，就是疫情的稳定为考量，是否就是限缩了这个部分的更动。另外，我也想要问的是，第二个问题是，之前总理有谈到，就是要给予国会反对党领袖毕丹新先生更多的资源。我们要进入下一期的国会就是新的会期的时期，很多国人都希望理解更多详情，关于会有什么样的资源我们会提供给就是国会反对党领袖，希望总理可以谈。
第二个问题很简单，这个 Leader of the Opposition 反对党领袖，我们在这个星期之内会确定他的详细的细节，并且会公布它的内容。不是很复杂的问题，这个主要是承认并且确定反对党在国会里的任务，他们的责任不只是责问政府，同时是提出有效的、可行的替代的方案，让选民可以有选择，让我们可以了解，当我们决定一个政策的时候，有什么取舍，有什么重要的地方，有什么是不得不牺牲的地方。所以这些呢，我们希望有了一个 Leader of the Opposition， 有反对党领袖，那他们在国会自任的角色会改变，那他们可以在国会扮演一个更积极、更有效的角色。至于我们的部长的你所谓的平行移动，对我来说是让每一位部长能够更有效的扩展他个人的经验，因为比起前几任部长、前几代部长，第4代部长其实在政府里的经验，多数是1届可能是2届的时间，没那么长。比如像我或者是张志贤或者是单达曼国务资政，我们都已经是在政府里很多年了，并且在许多部门都服务过，所以有经验。那年轻部长并还没有获得这些经验，所以我希望通过这一次的调动，可以让每一位部长更全面的了解政府所面对的挑战。我们要看问题，要从不同的角度去看它。我们了解国家的利益，要平衡这许多不同的观点，才能知道哪一个才是正确的国家的观点。所以以前我们说，财政部长必须去一个花钱的部门。那花钱的部长，比如说是国防部或者是国家发展部的部长，如果可以的话，必须去收钱的部门，去财政部。那有经验，所以财政部你知道钱得来不易，在部门里你知道有些许多计划是重要的，是必须做的，我们是必须筹集资源去实现的。但是实现的过程中，也要尽量节省钱，尽量确定每一分钱都花得有意义。 所以我这一次的人事调动就是有一点这样的目的。Let me explain briefly the two questions on the leader of the opposition. We will have the details announced next week. It's not complicated. The main thing is we're recognizing the leader of the main opposition party in Parliament, and we hope that this will lead to the opposition in Parliament playing a more constructive and more substantive role, not just asking questions of the government, but also putting up alternatives, putting up proposals, and being scrutinized, therefore, so that Singaporeans can understand what the trade-offs are, what the issues are, what the choices are. And we can have a better quality of debate, a better public comprehension of the national priorities and issues, and we hope a better government for Singapore. As for the movement of the ministers, it's not a question, the issue is not promotions, the issue is what are the exposures which our ministers need. And compared to previous generations of ministers, I think the 4G ministers mostly came in maybe 1 or perhaps 2 terms ago, and the exposure in government is not quite as comprehensive or as long as me or Teo Chee Hean or Daman or even Ng Hen. And therefore, it's valuable for them to be put in different and contrasting places in order to understand issues from different perspectives and therefore be able to come to a considered judgment collectively on what should be the national perspective to take when you make decisions in cabinet. And not just be speaking on behalf of the seat which you are sitting upon at that time. Because tomorrow you may be in a different seat, and you must make up your mind what is the best thing to do for Singapore. And you can't just decide to make up your mind, you must have the experience of having been in the other place, having had the other responsibilities. And therefore you know, well, these are the trade-offs. The money has to be earned, spend it wisely, but the money does need to be spent. We must go and earn it, and even though it's not easy and it's not politically popular, well, we have to collect it one way or the other. And that's a philosophy with which I have tried to make the movements this time.
Thank you, PM. Next question from BH. Berita Harian, are you ready?
Brita,
Yes.
go ahead.
PM,
Yes.
the Labour chief is no longer held by a cabinet minister. How does this affect interests of the workers amidst the crisis? And I have a question for Dr. Maliki. Dr. Maliki, what is your take on your new promotion, and how does this? What will you pursue with the new task?
Well, ideally, the Secretary of NTUC is elected as an MP and can be appointed as a minister in my cabinet. That's how we have operated for a very long time. I think ever since Lim Chee-on was the Secretary of NTUC. Unfortunately, this time Chee Meng did not get re-elected. He remains Secretary of NTUC, and we will continue to work very closely with him. And we will find other ways to keep closely in touch and to understand what the workers' needs are and the union's perspectives are in cabinet as well as amongst the ministers. I will be meeting him regularly, and I'm sure Swee Keat and his team will also be meeting Chee Meng regularly. You want to say anything?
So PM, indeed, in fact, I've had many discussions with Chee Meng before the elections on how we can support our workers, particularly during this very severe recession and the risk of further job losses. And because of the structural changes that I spoke about earlier, I think there will also be significant changes in the workers. Hence, I mentioned earlier how we need to help our workers acquire new skills and for us to create new jobs and then place our workers in new jobs, and also to retain as many of our workers as possible. In fact, just 2 days ago, I had a long discussion with Chee Meng and the team of economic ministers to see how we can support our workers. And I will continue to have many meetings with Chee Meng as well as the senior leadership of the NTUC so that we can support our workers and get through this crisis well.
Maliki, your turn.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. First, I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues, Mr. Zaki Mohamad, Ms. Professor Faisal Ibrahim, as well as Ms. Rahayu for this honor that PM has given us. We are indeed very humbled and touched by this appointment. I would like to thank PM for this trust that he has in all of us. I stand ready to step up and take up the challenge and responsibilities of this new appointment, both in the Ministry of Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We know that education is an important and integral part of Singapore's development, especially as we prepare our young Singaporeans for the future. Singapore's education system has been regarded by many as one of the best in the world because of our readiness to continue to evolve and respond to evolving circumstances and needs over time. I think we should continue to do so, that our education system must continue to identify how we can harness the potential of every young Singaporean so that they can contribute as Singaporeans for the future growth of Singapore. Within the Malay community, we will continue to strengthen our work using the 3M framework. The Mendaki, MOES, and Mesra will continue to be strengthened as we work with the MMOs and help the Malay Muslim community right through these very challenging times, emerge stronger, emerge more confident as we achieve our vision of a community of success. At MFA, I will continue to work with our international partners as we bring forward the interests of Singapore and Singaporeans in the international fora as we navigate these very changing circumstances we are faced with today.
How about giving them a Malay soundbite?
Terima kasih. Saya amat tersentuh dengan pelantikan ini dan bersedia untuk mengambil peranan yang lebih penting yang diberi oleh Perdana Menteri. Saya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Perdana Menteri di atas pelantikan ini. Kita akur bahawa pendidikan merupakan satu tonggak utama dalam pembangunan negara kita dan dalam kita memastikan anak muda Singapura bersedia untuk menyumbang kepada negara. Dan sumbangan ini harus berkaitan langsung dengan sistem pendidikan Singapura yang telah diiktiraf sebagai satu sistem yang terbaik di dunia ini. Kita harus memastikan bahawa sistem kita boleh dan berupaya mengasuh, menggilap dan mengoptimalkan kebolehan potensi setiap rakyat Singapura, anak muda kita, supaya mereka dapat menyumbang sebagai warga dan sebagai rakyat Singapura kepada pembangunan negara Singapura.
Terima kasih. Now, today, please.
Hi. On the question on change versus continuity, I mean, after the Watershed 2011 GE, you said, PM, you said you embarked on a fresh start and a radical change. At that time, there was 11 new ministers in charge of 14 ministries, but this time around, we see 6 new ministers out of 15. So could you share the thinking behind this difference? And well, secondly, you said in the GE that the third generation ministers, including yourself, intend to stay on and hand over Singapore in good stead. Do you see yourself continuing as PM beyond 17 years old, as you said previously? And are we also seeing the next gen of leaders emerge in this reshuffle?
Well, I did not make a comparison with 2011 because it's a different situation. And the big difference this time, as I explained, is because we are in the middle of COVID-19, and therefore I have had to maintain a greater degree of continuity than I would otherwise have done. And the ministers who have been directly handling COVID-19 I've kept in place, but I hope that within not too long a time, as the situation stabilizes and we get on top of it, it will be possible for me to make further changes. As for the handing over timetable, I had expressed the hope that I would be able to hand over by the time I celebrate my 70th birthday, but I do not determine the path of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a lot will depend on how events unfold, and all I can say is I will see this through and I'll hand over in good shape as soon as possible to the next team and into good hands.
Thank you. Now the final question, due to time, it's Channel 8.
Good afternoon, PM. This is Kawai from Channel 8. I'll probably need you to give a few comments in Mandarin about what you mentioned in your English speech earlier. 基本上就是刚才你提的一些考量，在组阁的时候，有3大考量，然后还有接下来它将如何影响你接棒给第4代的这个领导团队的工作？你会延迟你的交棒的工作吗？谢谢。
这一次组织一个新的内阁有3大考量：第一，要有维持一个连续性，因为我们正在一个很严重的危机中，我不要突然间有断层的现象，有这个危险，所以我保留了多数的比较有经验的部长继续在内阁里服务。第二，年轻的部长，我尽量让他们有机会接触到新的责任，了解政府不同层面的工作。所以在年轻部长团队中，我们许多部长都已经更换了部门，除了那些直接处理危机的部长之外，都更换了部门。因为我希望他们能够更全面的了解政府不同方面的工作。第三呢，就是领导更新，所以在内阁里，我尽量物色新的人才，把他们引进来，让他们能够接触到那个的工作，让他们能够在直接经验中证明他们能够做一些什么事情，同时也可以从比较年长的部长中互相学习磋商，那能够过了一段时候，能够接过这个责任。领导交棒，我原来是希望在70岁之前能够做完的，可是那个是新冠病毒发现袭击新加坡之前。现在在这个局势里，我们的首要任务是把新冠病毒的局势控制好，把新加坡的经济稳定下来。所以我决定首要任务把这个做好了之后，然后可以平稳的、安心的把新加坡交给下一代的领导班子。
Thank you, PM. Thank you, everyone, for joining us to the press conference today. Thank you very much.
And that was Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. PM Lee just unveiled his new cabinet lineup at a live press conference from the Istana. The new slate will see a reshuffle of the cabinet lineup. Now, Ms. Grace Fu will be appointed Minister for Sustainability and Environment, what was previously called Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. She will relinquish her appointment as Minister for Culture, Community and Youth. Meanwhile, Mr. Lawrence Wong will be appointed Minister for Education. He will remain Second Minister for Finance and relinquish his appointment as Minister for National Development. Mr. Massago Zulkifli will be appointed Minister for Social and Family Development and Second Minister for Health. He will remain the Minister in charge of Muslim Affairs and relinquish his appointment as Minister for the Environment and Water Resources. Mr. Ong Ye Kung will be appointed Minister for Transport. He will relinquish his appointment as Minister for Education. Mr. Desmond Lee will be appointed Minister for National Development. He will relinquish his appointment as Minister for Social and Family Development, but will remain in the ministry and be concurrently appointed as Minister in charge of Social Services Integration. Ms. Indrani Raja will be appointed Second Minister for National Development and relinquish her appointment as Second Minister for Education. She will remain Minister in the Prime Minister's Office and as Second Minister for Finance. New face Dr. Tan See Leng will be appointed Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Second Minister for Manpower and Second Minister for Trade and Industry. PM Lee also announced promotions for several office holders. Dr. Maliki Osman will be promoted to full minister. He'll be appointed minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Second Minister for Education and Second Minister for Foreign Affairs. He will relinquish his appointment as the Mayor of South East District. Mr. Edwin Tong will be promoted to full minister as well. He will be appointed Minister for Culture, Community and Youth and Second Minister for Law. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Heng Swee Keat, the Deputy Prime Minister, will take on an additional appointment as Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies. Now, for the full list of lineup and promotions, visit straitstimes.com. Meanwhile, do set a notification as we will be returning in a short while. We will speak to news editor Zakir Hussain on the significance of these changes to the lineup. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman. See you in a short while.